Hello, everyone. I hope I can be heard properly. My name is Fatima Galaudu, and I'll be your host for today. I'm a software engineer at Yeditech and also a React Native developer. So I'm really excited to be here to hear all the talks that we're going to be having, and looking forward to just gaining some more knowledge. I mean, the good thing about coding is you can never know everything. Even if you've been doing it for 10 years, I mean, you can hear a talk from a newbie that started a year ago and you'd still learn something. So let's just get into it. The first speaker is Valentino. Hope Valentino is ready for me.
So my name is Valentino Ugbala. I'm a software engineer at Sumosoft. At Sumosoft, we build SDKs for e-commerce platform. I primarily work as a front-end engineer there. I'm also a co-lead at frontendweekly.dev. Frontendweekly.dev it's like a not so weekly event I do with two other awesome engineers where we get to break down nuggets in front-end development. Then I double as a mentor at Enye. Enye is a platform that looks towards upskilling young engineers and with mentorship, by giving them mentorship support and also connecting them to job opportunities both home and abroad. So I'll just go straight to the talk. Yeah, starting projects can be very difficult and it shouldn't be at all. If you're to just make random searches about React Native on Google, you would start seeing crazy words like Expo, React Native CLI, animated, and it can be very, very crazy because you just want to start a project, right? You don't want to learn everything in the whole. You want to read the entire documentation before you can get a Hello World app running. So that leads me to the essence of this talk. Basically, I'll try to demystify the process of starting a new React Native project. We'll try and look at common approaches of starting a new project, and we'll take note of their pros and cons. In the end, you should be able to take less time. I hope in the end you'll be able to take less time in deciding the approach to take whenever you're starting a project. So I'm basically just looking at bootstrapping you with the knowledge you need to start your project, right? So just create your React Native application. So basically, for starting a React Native project, I'll group all the different approaches into three categories. The first is when you're starting your project from scratch. The next is when you're making use of a boilerplate. While the third is make use of a visual editor. So we'll look at each of them and we'll look at their pros and cons. So the first is starting the project from scratch. So ideally, there are two major ways of starting a project from scratch, right? If you go to, so one is React Native CLI, and the next is Expo CLI. If you're new to React, or even if you're a veteran in React, you'd have heard about these two. You probably would have heard about CLI or Expo at the point in time. So we'll try to understand what each does and the advantages of using one over the other. React Native CLI, it's pretty much the default way of starting your React Native application. Like if you go to reactnative.dev, the official documentation, you see the command for starting your React Native application using that. So you basically just have to run this command and it gives you this entire folder structure. So if you look closely, it gives you a bare metal project, meaning that it obviously makes you start from scratch. So you are given the flexibility to do whatever you want. If you look closely, you'd see that there's an Android folder and an iOS folder. Now this contains native code, like your main activity, the Java and your info, the playlist files, where you could just easily go in case you want to tweak some stuff in the native realm. So you could just go in and make your changes. So what are the pros and cons of using this approach? For the pros, the good thing is that you can add native modules. So if you recall, we saw that it gives us an Android and iOS folder. So you could easily just jump in and make changes and edits. It is much easier to optimize build size in the sense that it's giving you a bare metal project, right? So you have control of the different libraries that you're adding, and adding libraries obviously is a factor in determining the final size of your application. You get access to always work with the latest features in React Native, right? This is the default way of starting React Native project. So things like new stuff like Flipper and Hermes, as soon as they are launched, you could always just jump in and start making use of them. The cons of using this is it can take a bit of time to set up a project properly, especially if you're like a beginner developer, because it's giving you a bare metal project, right? So you'll have to go and fetch different libraries, figure out which libraries to use, how to like structure code and stuff like that. And all this could take considerable time while you're starting your application. Adding native modules can be difficult. You would have experience as a mobile developer. So like when I first started, if I read articles, they were telling me that I have to go into the main activity, the Java file, or go into the build or Gradle file. Sometimes I always get scared because I really don't have mobile developer experience. So for beginners, especially for guys that are web developers and they are coming into work, it could be a bit of a learning curve to do that. But the good thing is that React Native recently released something called AutoLink. So that actually helps make the process easier of adding native modules. It's really difficult to develop for iOS without a MacBook, right? So if you don't have an Apple Mac, it's a bit annoying because React Native is for building cross-platform applications, and it would be nice if, as you're coding, you could always see the iOS and Android version of the app at the same time. But if you're using a Windows system or like Linux system, it's really difficult, and you'd have to do like some hacks in order to make that work. And if you want to share the application, you'd have to build the APK. Now, this is actually the standard way of doing things, like for mobile developers. But the reason why I place it as a con is because there are better ways of doing it, and we'll check that out very soon. So next we look at is Expo CLI. So Expo is like a framework for building universal React Native applications. If you're familiar with React, you'd have heard about Create React App. So that's what Expo gives. Expo gives a lot of tools, right? But majorly it's pretty known for like helping you to bootstrap your React Native project. There are two major approaches towards using it. We have the bare flow and the managed flow, right? Managed flow is actually the one that's been on for quite a while, and it's pretty much common. So we'll focus a lot more on that before rounding back down to the bare flow. If you want to start an Expo project, you basically just install the Expo CLI globally, then you run this command. And once you choose the manage flow option, you get this. Now, if you look at this, you realize that this is much slimmer, the smaller folders compared to the React Native CLI project folder, in the sense that you don't get the Android and the iOS folder. So this gives you or tells you that when you're developing with Expo, you probably wouldn't need to touch any native module, right? Expo has a way of like abstracting that process and doing it for you under the hood. So you just get to focus on doing the JavaScript that you love. One of the things that Expo has is the Expo development kit. So this is a picture of it. So with it, there's also something called an Expo client app, which you download on your phone. So if you want to debug while you're developing on Expo, once you start your Expo app, this opens on the browser. Then if your device and your laptop are on the same network, you just have to scan this QR code. And once you scan the QR code, you can start debugging your application. It's actually really cool. From here, you could also start up the project on your Android or iOS emulator and so many other cool stuff. So what are the pros and cons of using this approach? You can share the application without having to build or send the APK. So if you look closely, there's a publish or republish section in the Expo development kit. And what that does, it allows you to like, it kind of like build and publish your app at a particular link. So if you want to share your application to like your project manager or some stakeholder, you just do that. And the project manager, all he needs to do is just open up Expo on his application, the Expo client app on his phone. And from there, he can access your application. And you don't even need to like build or put, you don't need to build the application and, send him the APK and stuff like that. It just helps make the process really seamless. It comes with cool tools like OTA, push notifications, and build service. I'll talk about OTA. OTA is short for over-the-air updates. And basically what it means is, imagine a scenario where you have your consumers or clients, you have your consumers using your application, and you probably just want to add a new feature, just want to probably add a new stuff, show a different design or something on a screen in your application. Instead of going through the stress of building your application, bundling it, and pushing it again to App Store and Apple Store, OTA allows you to like publish it without going through all those parts. So what happens is on your consumers' phones, what they do, the application listens for these changes and just updates the application automatically. And it's a really cool feature. Although it has some limitations, but it's still a pretty nifty tool. You probably won't need to touch native code throughout while you're developing with the Expo. Now, recall that we are still talking about the Expo managed flow, in case you might have forgotten that. So you probably wouldn't need to touch native code at all, because from there you could see that there's no Android and iOS folder. So you don't need to be scared that you can't touch Java code or Objective-C code. What are the cons? The cons of it is the app size is large. A simple Hello World app, a screen that's showing you Hello World, is about 20 MB on iOS and 15 MB on Android, and that's crazy. And the truth is, the major reason why that happens is because Expo comes bundled with so many libraries. Like it has React Native, React Navigation, React Screens installed by default. It also has Google XDK and Facebook SDK. So in the event where you're not using Google login or Facebook login in your application, then it's kind of like not necessary having to bundle all that in your application when you're eventually not going to use it. So it's a major pain point because it makes your app large for no reason. You're not even using it at all. So you also can't add native modules, like I mentioned before. There isn't an Android and iOS folder. So if you want to add a native module, especially one that, so the truth is, Expo tries to support as much libraries with native modules as possible, right? So once you're installing it, they help you set up the native modules themselves. But the thing is that there are some libraries that don't support Expo, or Expo doesn't support. So in cases where you want to add a library like that, an example is probably you want to add a Bluetooth library to your application. Expo doesn't currently support that. You would have to eject your application. And ejecting an Expo application basically means you're converting it from the Expo managed flow to a React Native CLI project. So it's more like you're going back to the bare metal project. You lose all the cool stuff that comes with Expo, and like what's the essence of going through the Expo route if at the end of the day you're still going to go back there, right? So that's also a very huge pain point. You're restricted to Expo's services like their push notifications. So I think Expo uses one signal to handle push notifications, and you probably might not want to use that. You might want to use something like code push. But if you're using Expo managed flow, you're limited and restricted to using just that. So this has been like a problem in the community. A lot of people want to use Expo because of the ease of development. The fact that with the Expo development kit, you can connect like 5 of your devices. You can scan the QR code, connect like 5 devices and testing them at the same time, as opposed to when you're just using React Native CLI, where you're only limited to using your simulator or connecting your phone via a USB cord to your system, right? So a lot of people like want to use Expo because of its ease of development, but they are scared of it because of its unnecessarily large size. So the Expo team thought about this and decided to bring something called the Expo CLI bare flow. Recall I mentioned that the bare flow is one of the different flows when you're starting a project with Expo, and I said that I was going to come back to it. So the Expo bare flow is basically gives you the best of both worlds from the managed flow and React Native CLI. So what basically happens is once you start a project with the bare flow, you have a React Native CLI bare metal project, right? So you have all those for your Android and iOS, but you could still add features of Expo through a library called React Native Unit Modules. So with that, it makes it easy for you to access some of the cool stuff that the Expo managed flow gives you. So if you look at this, actually, if you do Expo in it, it gives you this prompts and can get to decide if you want to go to the managed flow or you want to go through the bare flow. So that's awesome. So we're going to look next at making use of a boilerplate. Boilerplate, if you're a web developer, you'll probably be familiar with templates. We use it a lot when you probably have like a very short time to do your MVP and you don't want to go through the stress of like building your UI or structuring your application. So you go get something that someone already has done and just tweak it to your fit and work with that. So we obviously have something similar in React Native. Boilerplates, I decided to call them boilerplates. Boilerplates are projects that are set up using Expo and or React Native CLI, and it includes other libraries and code set up to just make your development faster and seamless, right? Some common ones that you'd see are some of them that you'd see are like you have native-based theme, you have Ignite browser, Argon. We'll look at a couple of them before going on. So I tend to break the boilerplates into 2 categories. The first is the category where you have all your screens designed. So in this case, native-based UI team, you could see that on the right, you could see that this is an e-commerce application, and all the screens here are like designed. So this is one of the themes you get when you go to native-based UI marketplace. Now, native-based UI is actually it's a UI library for building applications in React Native. So it comes with stuff like buttons and some other components that you need when you're building your application. So there are other common ones like React Native elements, UI kitting, which is beyond the scope of this talk. So basically what happens at the native-based marketplace is people use native-based UI components to build screens. So you could just go to their marketplace, get like an e-commerce template that somebody already has done, install it, and just change. All you need to do is just probably change the text and update it with your content. Now, the second form of boilerplates that I categorized is when you have a project without your coded screens, right? And that is what Ignite browser does. So basically what it does is that once you start a project with Ignite browser, it pretty much generates a folder structure for you, right? So the problem when you're trying to start an application, let's say you start your application with Expo or React Native, the next thing you start trying to figure out is where do I place files? So where do you place your navigation files? Where do you place where you place your navigation code? Where do you place your store for your application? Where do you place your API services? You know, where do you place services that used to access async storage, and it can be a pain in the ass because personally I've faced that recently when I have to start a project and I just don't know how to structure my application because there are so many ways to go about doing that. So better place like Ignite Browser, what they do is once you start the project using them, they give you a structured application. So you see like folders for where you should place your components, where you should place your screens, where you should place your navigation code, and you don't need to like waste time trying to bother about how to do all those. You just jump in and just write your code, right? So Ignite Browser is done by Infinite Thread, and they are a really cool contributor towards the React Native community. So what are the pros and cons of using a boilerplate? The pros are it gives you speed in development because obviously you spend less time trying to think of how to structure your application, or in some cases how to like build out your screens. You just have to focus on like your business logic, updating your content, and it helps for you to get your product to market faster. The cons of this approach is it can be bloated and it can include stuff that you don't need. So like most times templates tend to include as much screens as possible. And sometimes so a template could have like 30 screens and you probably just need like 5. And if they aren't like exactly, if they are not loosely coupled, you would have to go through a lot of pain trying to remove like the screens that you don't need, because having extra 30 screens means that your application is going to be unnecessarily large. So going through the stress of having to remove those screens can be a bit annoying. Also, it can be difficult to tweak, and it is opinionated in the sense that, for example, for Ignite browser, you could see that it comes with stuff like TypeScript and MobX. It uses MobX for the Redux store. Now, me as a React Native developer, I might not know MobX, but instead I might want to use something like Redux, or I might want to use something like Context. So having to go and tweak the code base in order to like work with the tool I want can be a bit difficult and can lead to waste time, and we obviously do not have time, right? So a good approach of circumventing this would be to like search for libraries that have the tools you want. So like, for example, Infinite has Ignite Andros, and Ignite Andros uses Redux instead of MobX. So you just have to look for what best suits your use case. Now, the last we're going to look at is making use of a visual editor. I'm pretty sure we are familiar with tools like Figma, Adobe XD, or Sketch. So that's pretty much what the visual editor is like. So the visual editors are what you see, what you get tools that enable you to generate your code from design. At the moment, there are like two common ones. The first is BuilderX, and the next is DraftBit. Now, DraftBit isn't public yet, but you could you could send them a request to access the application, which is still in beta. Now, BuilderX is actually really cool. BuilderX is built by Geeky Ants, and Geeky Ants are also the people in charge of native-based UI, and it has so many cool features in the sense that so basically the way the interface is, which I'll show in a bit, it's more or less like something similar to like Figma. So you could like drag and drop different UI elements, and as you're doing that, it's automatically generating the code in React and React Native. Like it's super awesome. You see, designers and developers can collaborate on the same project. So imagine a scenario where your designers are just doing the screens. As they're doing the screens, you're just automatically getting the code, which you could just carry and put in your project. Or once they are done, you could just download the entire project and run it on your phone. Like, it is mind-blowing. You get to import sketch files, which make life easy because Sketch, it's something that a lot of designers use already. So you don't even need to, you just have, it's so easy to import it. Once you just import it, you just converts, gets all the screens, shows all the artboards on the UI, and you could just start working with it, get your components and stuff like that. Then Flex Layout, a problem with a lot of all these UI tools is that, or will I say designers, okay, I'll just say UI tools, is the fact that they tend to favor absolute positioning. So if a designer like designs a screen for an iPhone 11 or for a small device, or let's say, yeah, for a small device, now it could look perfect on that small device. So let's say it was an iPhone 11, right? If I was to like use the same dimensions to build on an iPhone 11, it will look good, but it will look weird once I try showing it on an iPhone XS Max, and that's because it isn't exactly like responsive. So BuilderX tries to circumvent this issue by introducing this flex layout. So they try their best to convert some of all these parameters from the absolute values to a flex or relative value, so that no matter how your application is, if you design it well, it will stretch appropriately. So you could say that, okay, this image takes 80% of the screen, this button takes 30% of the screen. And I think that is awesome. Then component export. So aside the fact that after doing your designs, you could download the entire project and start running it, you could also just get the code for a particular component, right? So you could just design a screen and just get the code for that screen. So in the event where you probably don't use BDX for your final application, once you just design it, you could just copy the code, add it to your separate project, and it just makes life easy for you. So this is an example of me trying to do something with BDX. Now, I don't laugh at me. I'm not exactly a UI guru, so this was what I could come up with. Basically, this is a small application where you get to see all the speakers of the conference, and once you click on each of their images here, it takes you to their respective screens. So you could see cool stuff like you could you could see there's like a design tool where you could do stuff like reduce opacity, change the color. You could stack it to the center, or stuff like that. You could also see so this was like a component I created. So you could create components, and speaker detail is a component that basically has the picture and the text here. So you create components and it generates the component for you to use. Now, after building this, and like probably took me like 5 minutes to get this done, I downloaded the project, and this is it in action. So you could see how awesome it is. Like on the right, you could see the QR code, which means that downloading it gives you like an expo project. So you could actually continue working on it once you get it downloaded. So you could continue doing your stuff. It gets all the different libraries that you would need to render the application, adds them to your package.json, and you could just like start, continue coding. And that is like a really, really awesome feature. Like I'm really happy for where this is going, because it's going to change a lot about the way things are done, and about the way we could build like quick prototypes and like full-blown applications. Now, what are the pros and cons of using this approach? Pros for sure is that you definitely have speed in development, right? It's easy for you to create working prototypes of application. Okay, so I know that with something like InVision app, you could like connect buttons to each other. But in this scenario, this actually generates the application. So it actually generates application code, and you could just like, so I actually want to demo it, but because of time, I just had to do a video and a picture. So you could basically like set an image to be a touchable, a clickable item, and you can connect it, and you could do rules like, okay, if you click on this button, take me to this page. You click on this button, take me back to this page. So that makes it so easy for you to easily create prototypes without like actual so much application logic, and for you to share to your your stakeholders to like have a feel about how the application looks on their real device. It gives designers superpowers. When I told my designer about this, he was really amazed, right? So that's the cons about this approach is functionalities are a bit limited. I feel everything about it is exactly perfect yet. For example, trying to import from Sketch, it works on some devices. It works for some Sketch files, but for some other Sketch files, it isn't exactly that perfect. And they actually stated this notice that to make it work with Sketch files, there's a bit of like a learning curve and stuff. There's a bit of a way you have to like structure your application for it to work perfectly, right? But these are things that they are building on. Also, the flex layout feature wasn't exactly that great. It's still, for most of my applications, it still gave absolute values. But then again, I'm sure that if I took out my time to like look at it better, I could have come up with a better generated code. So in all, it's actually awesome. It's something that they're constantly still building upon, and it's a pretty awesome tool. So that's it about using the visual editor. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for going through this talk with me. I hope we're able to like understand the different approaches of starting a React Native application in 2020, and I hope that it's helped demystify the process a little bit. And moving on, you'd have a bit of knowledge about which approach to go to when you want to start your React Native application. So thank you very, very much.
Hey guys, so I'm here again. Tino, thanks so much for that great talk. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, great. I mean, like you just like, even I've been using React Native for some years now, but I mean, I'm seeing some stuff, and it's just awesome to see them in action. Like I've known BDX for a while, but like seeing it, in action like that, it's just great. Thanks for the talk. So I'll just get into. We have some questions, from the comments. Some people are really, really curious. So I'll just start with some, newbie questions. Like someone is asking, okay, like two people are asking, you're learning another JavaScript framework, maybe Angular or Vue, and you want to come into React Native. What was your take on that? How long will it take them to, step into React Native and start doing, stuffs? Not necessarily job level, but how long do you think it take them to, jump into React Native?
Okay, we're coming from another. So the thing is this, right? React Native, everything is still JavaScript. It all boils down to JavaScript, just like different approach. towards building stuff, right? So to start building an application React Native, I can't give a timeline because I don't know how fast everyone learns. But if you are to go use it, if you are to use the documentation, I don't think it should take you that much a lot of time. Like, I know about 2 friends of mine that I shared the documentation to, and they were coming from Vue, and within like 3-4 days, they're already building an application that was making use of Firebase. So it was like awesome, right? The fact that you already know JavaScript makes life, a bit easy. So you just need to learn 1 or 2 things about how React works and React Native works, and yeah, you're good to go.
So, guys, in the comments, hope you heard that. Whatever it is you know already, you just need to jump in and, like Tino said, try and wrap your head around it. And since you already know some coding, it should work well for you. Okay, thanks for that answer, Tino. So someone else is asking something relative to Expo and CLI, React Native CLI. You explained that there's several ways to go about it. There's Expo CLI and there's Expo and there's React Native CLI. So what I know you've already gone over the pros and cons. Why you should use them, but just compare them. On a parallel line, like between Expo and React Native CLI. What are your? Just compare them in like a few minutes.
Okay. So
what do you think is better?
All right. So the thing is, you'd have to understand that Expo has 2 flows. It has the managed flow and the bare flow. So the Expo bare flow is basically like having your React Native CLI together with the extra features that Expo brings. But for a beginner, if you want to start your application and you really don't want to go through the stress of doing much, I'd recommend going through the Expo route because it makes it easy for you to easily start your project, and makes you go through you don't need to unnecessarily go through the stress of configuring and stuff like that. Exactly. So
okay,
as a beginner, I recommend starting with Expo managed flow.
Expo. All right, thank you very much, Tino. So I think our next speaker is on his way. I'll hand over to Fatima now to introduce the next speaker. Thanks, guys.
That was really insightful. Thank you, Valentino. So let me reintroduce him again. So for those that missed his introduction, he is Valentino, and he is a software engineer at SumoSoft. And he talked to us about how to start the create a React Native project in 2020. And he talked about boilerplates and different types of setups that you could use. Very insightful and a good reminder. So our next speaker is Shodipo Ayomide, a senior developer advocate at Sleek, and he's talking to us about after create React Native app, what next? So after you've gone through Valentino's process, what next? Yep, he's ready for me.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me or see me? Okay, I'm visible. Good. Okay, so hi everyone. As I said, my name is Ayo. Let me share my screen. That's odd. It seems there's a technical problem right now. And is there anyone on the live chat to come help me, give me support here? Because it looks like I cannot share an application. I can only share my Chrome browser. Is that true with StreamYard? Can anyone hear me? I don't know what's happening here. Hello? Your voice sounds distant. I don't know if there's some access I have to get, but I can't seem to share my Keynote. So my slides is on Keynote and not on my Google Chrome browser.
Yes. So just share your Keynote. You don't need to share your Keynote, just share your screen, then slide back the Keynote.
Okay. Okay, I see that.
Yeah. So you good? Yeah,
Does it work?
So
It works, right? Can you see can everyone see my slides? Can everyone see it? Can I just get a yes from one person because I can't go back? Good. Okay. As the organizer announced, my name is Shodipo Ayomide, and today I'm going to talk about after create React Native apps. What's next? So my name is and senior developer advocate at Flake, community for on SAC, DevC Lagos, Open Source Community Africa, and Africa Hacks. So why exactly do people use React Native? So number 1, cross-platforms. Number 2, that mobile native experience. So some companies using React Native, we have Instagram. So React Native was built by Facebook. We all know that already. So definitely one of their platforms definitely uses React Native, so which is Instagram. So Instagram is fully built on React Native. We have Airbnb, we have Bloomberg, we have Discord, mobile app, we have Facebook Ads Manager, we have SoundCloud, we have Skype, and we have Tesla Mobile. So great applications using the same tool that we all use here today to build amazing solutions that work. So setting up your React Native environment. So it actually looks like the last speaker covered most of the things I'm going to be talking about in my talk. So I'm going to move all my focus to one major thing in my talk that he slightly didn't mention. So I'm just going to run through all this process and just focus on that part when we get there. Okay. So first things first, setting up your environment for Windows or Mac users, Android Studio or Xcode, whichever works. But for iOS users, you have to have Xcode on your system. So install Watchman, install Homebrew, JDK, iOS and Android emulator, Node, NVM, React Native CLI. Okay, most of us might not really know what NVM is. So NVM in this case, so what NVM is used for is, when you have you're cloning a repo from GitHub, and the repo you're cloning from GitHub is using a Node version, let's say 8.0, and the Node version you're running locally is, let's say 10.0, and you definitely wouldn't be able to use NPM on this, like you won't be able to use Node at all because you are running a totally different version from the project. So what NVM does in this process is NVM helps you change the local version of your node to the version the project runs on. So with NVM, you can automatically change the version of node on your product from 10.0 to like 9.0, which the project runs on. Then you can use any of your node commands. So yeah, after doing all of that, then you React Native CLI. So, and this is all the like regular process we all know about. So that last speaker spoke about, which is npm install global React Native CLI. Then it needs like a new React Native app using React Native init, React Native Nigeria. That's the name of the project. Then you enter into the directory with CD React Native Nigeria. That's the all regular process with everyone who codes already. And then you want to run the emulator, React Native run Android, React Native run iOS. Same process we all use in our, let's say React developers do this, Vue developers do this, web developers, they all do this same process. So it's like the same process. Then once you run the emulator and it's running, you have an output like this, which shows you the Android version or the iOS version, whichever works for you. So intro to create React Native app. I don't seem to get used to this create React Native app because I feel it's a really long name. I don't, it's like a tongue twister for me when I try to say it because like intro to like create React Native app. Create React Native app. That sounds odd in my head. So, but enough of that. Let's get right into it. So, Create React Native app was developed by Expo. Expo is a free and open source platform for making universal native apps with React that runs on both Android, iOS, and web. So 3 experiences that you're going to have with Expo. Number 1 is the Android version. Number 2 is the iOS version, and also a web version. So first things first, you're going to install global the Create React Native app. So as usual, how we all do it, npm install -g. So that -g means global. You're installing globally on your system, saying create React Native app. Still twisting my tongue. Moving forward. So once you're done with that, the next command you're going to run after the create React Native app has been installed locally on, globally on your system is the create React Native app, React Native Nigeria. So React Native Nigeria is the name of the project you want to kickstart with on top of create React Native app. So once that's done, installed everything and configured everything, you just enter into directory and start your project. That's simple. So once you've seeded into the directory using what I have here, okay, since I don't have a mouse preview, so I can't hover. So once you cd React Native Nigeria, this create React Native app is not really working for my tongue. Okay, moving forward. Once you've got into the directory, you run yarn iOS, yeah. So basically what this does is, you know how in your package.json folder, you have the starters. So where there's like the yarn command, the yarn starts. So one of the command is like start, another command is like dev, and another command is like, let's say build, yes. So then it's like, so it's JSON, so it's like quotation, start, colon, another quotation, then the actual command is running, but then you're running on like yarn or like npm, whichever your preferred package manager. So you have to like have those commands to run the other pre-existing command, but it's so long. So for example, in the part where I said there is like starts, that's quotation, start, colon, like another quotation. In that second quotation, what you're having there is React Native run iOS. That's like a whole long command. So you have to like start your iOS emulator. You're going to have to write React-native space run dash iOS. That's the whole long process. So what changed here is with just iOS, you just have to just do yarn iOS. So automatically it runs a whole long command, and we all understand how this process works. I'm just trying to explain for anyone who doesn't understand how this process works. So that exactly builds your iOS app, which also compiles. But this process alone only works for Mac. So for you to run like iOS applications and all of that, you need like a MacBook because of some processing that was not available on the Android, on the Windows Select version. So yeah, then the yarn Android version, same process I explained the yarn iOS, you have for the yarn Android, and that runs your React Native, React Native Android app, yeah, right. So this process works on your Mac, your Windows laptop, on your Linux, everywhere, because it's Android. Then the web version, this is what's more like really cool about Expo itself. So this commands help you start the web version of your Expo. So in the second quotation that I explained in my first slide talking about this process, in the second quotation, you're going to have Expo start, then colon web. So this alone runs the web version of your app. and this runs for every every version, the Android, Linux, Mac, whatever operating system you are working on. So yeah, this is now where I'm going to be focusing most of my energy to. So which is one of the major things that you're going to love about Create React Native app is the fact that you can run pre-existing templates, and you can just like have pre-existing configurations of your application, and all you just have to just is start writing like the major key things you need for your application. Start configuring these things. That's all you have to need. So React Native apps have something called templates, where you have to just specify the kind of template you want, and you just have to just get to use them. For example, you can see the little command I have on the left-hand side. I have npm create React Native app. So -t in Expo means template. So -d with Apollo. So Expo have been able to put together some major templates that we can use to build applications, for example, with Apollo. So Apollo is going to cover things that has to do with GraphQL. So if you want to set up your applications with GraphQL, you have run the React Native init project. You are starting everything from scratch. But with Create React Native app, then you do -template. That's -t with Apollo. You're going to have all the setup you need to configure Apollo. All you have to do is just start configuration, not like installing Apollo GraphQL, not setting up Apollo Federation. All of those things are automatically preset when you just run -template with Apollo. So all of those things are automatically set in your projects. You don't have to like start them. So that's one of the beauty of using the Create React Native apps. Create React Native apps. I think I'm going to think of a short form to use rather than saying Create React Native apps. I've never got, I can't get used to that. Okay, but getting back on track. So there's with Apollo, there's with Auth0. So Auth0, as we all know, is authentication. So it's going to help you preset all the authentication processes automatically installed. Every dependencies you need, every little code basis you have to write, every little code lines you're going to have to put together, or you just have to put your keys in there and just make it work. Set up the configurations of the services you will need to use to the social service. Let's say it's like let's say Facebook, Twitter, all of those things are automatically preset with Auth0. That's with this template I'm talking about. There's set up with React Router also. So there's also React Router, which helps you out with links. I know, yeah, most scenarios we want to use, how should I put this? There are other ways we can route in React Native, but the best way really is the React Router, which was built by React Training. That's Ryan. He's a creator of React Router, and Cassidy, Cassidy, but the company recently just had to disband because of the current COVID-19 issue. So the company was disbanded. So, but the product is still being maintained by these creators. So it still works, and still what we use for like any React project. We also use React Router. So in the same case, so for your template, npx create React Native app -t, meaning template with React Router, with Facebook authentication, with Twitter authentication. However,
it's 11 o'clock.
These templates are being made available to you. Everything's been set up automatically. So this is the major beauty of the React Native app, and why you should exactly use this. So yeah, the templates that could be pre-installed on your Create React Native app were developed by Expo, as I said earlier. So the URL is github.com/expo/examples. So under examples is where you find all these pre-existing templates. The 5 ones I mentioned here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So the 5 templates I mentioned, these are not just the only one. There are many other templates, like a whole bunch of them on this URL. So which is github.com/expo/example. You find a whole bunch of like examples there that you could use. So why exactly should we use Create React Native app? So the main reason you should wrap your head around this Create React Native app built by Expo is number one, already configured templates. You just have to run npm create React Native app -t with Auth0. And you have an automatic Auth0 configuration set already. It's like you are like getting, okay, it's like the Create React app where you have like a whole bunch of things installed already. You just have to like remove the code that was written inside the app.js file and just start writing your own code. Like that's simple. A whole bunch of things already like pre-installed already. You have like no stress at all. Then yeah, full support for React Native Web as usual with Expo. So yeah, thank you. Any questions? I'm looking forward to answering them. You can catch me on Twitter at developer.io or GitHub as developer.io, same process, same username as usual. So thanks everyone.
Thank you for that great talk. I mean, I've been wanting to go into doing GraphQL and Apollo, but I've just been lacking the motivation for it. So maybe that talk will give me the push that I need. So moving on to the next speaker, his name is Godswill F. Young. He's a software engineer at Spread, and he'll be talking to us about bundling, about optimizing your Android bundle, which is really great because optimization and profiling is something we always tend to ignore. I think he'll be coming up real soon. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Godswill. I lead a small team at Spread. We build with React Native, React, and it's been awesome having those guys as teammates. Today I'm talking about optimizing our Android bundle. Let me share my screen. All right, so yeah, that's my screen is up now. I'm talking about optimizing your Android bundle. All right, so in React Native, we tend to focus on the user experience side of our applications rather than talking directly to the underlying APIs. We create a component that describes how our interfaces should look like during application runtime, and then React Native converts that into native components. However, it doesn't mean that with React Native, everything's supposed to run fast or seamless, since we don't actually control how we render the applications. All right. Taking us back, React Native is a declarative framework. I'll explain this. React Native does not use HTML and CSS like the way most people say that React Native is just some framework that you write HTML code with some CSS styling. But instead, React Native converts that whatever JavaScript code we write and manipulates it and gives us a native view. All right. And the working principles of React Native are kind of similar to React, except that it doesn't manipulate the DOM using the virtual DOM. It runs a background process which interprets JavaScript we write into native code on the end device and communicates through the bridge. Right? It takes care of rendering of the applications for us. In other words, it just detects the device that the application is running on and renders depending on the OS of that particular device. Right. Also, React Native allows us to write native codes like Java, Objective-C for Android, and Swift for iOS, and which makes it very flexible. All right. So, if we're going to talk about optimizations, we have to look at the usual suspects. And number one that happens almost every time is UI re-renderers. And we also sometimes we can also have slow startup time for our apps, and also we have to also look out for animations that runs under 60 frames per second. All right, if you're going to talk about UI renderers, it's a very important part of React Native in optimizing React Native, because this particular part can take a lot of battery life, apart from the bizarre reloading components, which translates into bad user experience in total. The mobile is extremely competitive. The mobile space is really competitive, and lots of applications have been designed that most of them do similar things, and most of the times the only way you can win users on your app is your user experience, your application speed, and your startup time. We are going to look deeper into UI renderers. All right, the rule here is simple. All right, by default, a component can be rendered if the parent re-renders or it props changes. All right, so a component will only re-render when that particular component's props changes or the parent's props re-renders, which means that your component's render method can sometimes run even if their props didn't change. All right, so you can have like a child component that's nothing changes in the child component, but because there was a change in the parent's component, it causes the child component to re-render. And this is an acceptable trade-off in most scenarios in React. What I'm trying to say is that how and when we print items or data on the screen is purely React Native responsibility, and it lies in the JavaScript code. React looks out for changes you have done in the component and compares them and renders them by design. One tip I would say is that we do not optimize in advance, because there's a reason for that. Some devs have the habit of fixing bugs, optimizing bottlenecks or UI flickers for later. So you notice a bug in your app, and instead of you solving the bug at the time, you'd be like, I'm going to do this later, or let me just get this feature to work. And this is a very bad habit because it could really be expensive. You should never perform any premature optimizations. Also, doing so might also give you a counter positive effect. Right? Sometimes from the hello world of your app, you are like, let me optimize this app from the start. Right? In essence, there is no point solving a problem that doesn't exist. So when you're your hello world, you don't have so much problems to solve, and then spending time optimizing the app might be almost time wasting. All right, so it's better to optimize your app as you build new components, new screens, or new features, or if you notice any UI re-rendering, or you notice a drop in frame per second. Try looking into this problem as soon as you notice them. All right, so you don't optimize before time, and you don't optimize behind time. You optimize as you go. Another tip I'm going to give out is we're going to talk about using specialized components. So I would advise that you use, if you're thinking optimization, if you're thinking speed, if you're thinking user experience, I will say you use as many specialized components as possible. If you're not using specialized components, you are opting out from performance improvements and risking degraded user experience when your applications enters production. All right, it is worth noting. It is worth noting when certain issues remain unnoticed when the application is developed, because mock data doesn't reflect the size of production database. Right, specialized components are comprehensive and have broader APIs to cover vast majority of mobile scenarios. All right, so I'm going to explain this. One of example of the specialized components is flat list. All right, when you're building, when you're in the development stage, the data you use in testing normally is not vast. All right, so you might have maybe a list of 4 items, a list of 20 items, but when you hit production, that list is going to go from 10 to 50 to 500 to 2,000 to millions of items. And at that point, you can't really control it, because when you were building using 5 items to test this. Meanwhile, now your list is hitting about 1,000 items, and you have to render that all at once. So it may be a real pain, if you don't use specialized components. Especially, let's talk about flat list for a while. All right, so I'll say we always use flat list for all your lists. All right, flat list is a performance interface for rendering list items, and it supports handy features. All right, it's not just use flat list because you don't know what's going on. All right, flat list supports full cross-platform. So you can't say flat list only work on iOS or it doesn't work on Android. It works everywhere. It supports horizontal and vertical moves. So if you have a list that has to be vertical or horizontal, flat list is there to help you out. Support header supports. If you need a list in your header, you need a list in your footer. It also has the option for pull to refresh. Right. So you might have a list, for example, you might have a chart, or you might have whatever list you have, and you need like a pull to refresh to update from what's is in the database. It has scroll loading. Can scroll to a particular index. It has so much features, and I don't know why anybody should not use flat list for list. All right, every application contains at least lists at some point. So there's almost no application that doesn't have lists at least. This is an example. All right, so let's have a little code here. This is an example of a list. All right, so the fastest and dirtiest way to create a list of items or elements will be to combine screw view and the view primitive component of React Native. All right, so this is the first part. The code was a little bit long, so I had to cut it short. So this is the first part of the list. All right, so this is the dirty work here. All right, so nobody should do this, because you're going to run into serious problem. However, this is quick and it works, but dealing with large data sets, infinite scroll, and memory management will be a real problem if you're not using flat list here. So you can't just use scroll view and view to display n number of items. Now let's look at flat list. Now this is what flat list does. All right. So the difference is significant. All right. You may not notice it when you're building, but the difference is really significant in production. All right. If you have example 500 list items on scroll view, definitely that view you'll be noticing some junkies, you'll be noticing some hanging. You'll be wondering what is happening. It was working in development. What's happening in production? It's because scroll view cannot handle large data sets, and flat list is your plug for the large data set anytime. At the end of the day, flat list uses screw view and view components as well. So I don't see why you should just use screw view and view when you could just use flat list. Well, the key lies in the logic that abstracts away in flat list components. It contains a lot of things, and I'm going to explain that. Advanced JavaScript calculations to reduce amount of excess rendering is being taken care of with flat list. All right. So make sure that everything is done under 60 frames per second. That's flat list for you. So it's really bad. It's really bad coding to have a list and you're rendering that list with screw view and view, because you're going to run into serious problems in the future. All right, another thing I'm going to talk about is external libraries. You don't need a third-party library for everything. And even if you do, you really want to know how the library was built. JavaScript development environments ecosystem is a really awesome environment where a lot of things are being done. All right, so you have a lot of packages, you have a lot of, for example, you have a lot of frameworks, you have a lot of libraries I could use. But because that library works in JavaScript, of course it works in React, doesn't mean it's compatible for React Native. All right, so I would advise that if you're picking libraries, you make sure that you pick libraries that you consider the size of the library. You might want to check the code and see how the code is being written and know that this is quite optimal for your app that you're installing it with. I'll explain why we need to check very well. Keep a close eye on external libraries down the line. All right, so when picking a library to use in our project, we often research if we have to research if these libraries are actually healthy. All right, the first thing we normally check is GitHub stars, numbers of issues, numbers of contributors, numbers of PRs, But sometimes you forget to see how the code is written. and how large these libraries are. Right. Although you may not be able to do that with just scrolling through, you might want to like open the code, check what is done. Sometimes check the numbers of issues and see regular issues that people have, and you prepare yourself if you want to do that. And then if you check out the code and you see that this code can be easily done by you, why don't you just build your own components and have this dead library not installed on your application? All right, so when you install packages using npm on yarn, all right, so everything is put into the project, and that code, so no matter the size, let's say you have one ugly library that has the size of 2 MB, and then 2 MB is a lot of size, a lot of memory, and then you install that library into your application. That size will also be in your production. So let's say, for example, you're installing a library that will help you calculate or convert a figure to currency, and you want the currency to be shown in Naira. And then you go install a particular library that has some large size, and then just to convert numbers to currency. And then you go into production, you're wondering, and you be busy reducing lines of code and taking out things, not knowing that your libraries are actually large and causing your app to be large as well. React Native is a fast growing community and has numbers of features. All right. So last year alone, or rather this morning, because I also checked to confirm, React Native Core has about 20,000 commits, and the numbers are increasing every day. This is outside the smaller projects which was taken during the React Native Slim Core period. We have other packages and other components, and a total sum of about 9,000 commits. So that tells us that the React Native community is really active, super active, and they are building and improving the framework almost every day. I would advise that keeping your application up to speed with frameworks like React Native is really crucial, because this way you subscribe to latest features, improvements, and performance improvements and security fixes. The JavaScript ecosystem is particularly interested in this aspect as it moves really quickly. All right, so they always want to update performance. We always want to update security patches. We always want to make the framework better. If you do not update your app regularly, chances that your code will end up being far behind the upgrading range, or will be too painful and risky to upgrade. React Native is one of the libraries that is growing very rapidly, and every developer from around the world introduce new features and crucial bug fixes and security patches. On average, every release includes about 500 commits. And now, to get our app up to speed, we have a tool created by the React Native community called React Native Upgrade Helper. And it's always a good place to start, because with React Native Upgrade Helper, you can easily upgrade, including your native part of your application, into the current and latest version of React Native. All right. Now, talking about having latest versions of our React Native in our applications, Hermes is one of the new things that's not so new, but it's still new to some people. It's still new, actually. Hermes is one of the things that has blown a lot of people's mind in the React Native system. On the 11th, to be precise, 11th of July 2019, at the Change React event, Hermes was introduced for the first time. And before this time, it was already internally used by Facebook before it went open source. And the reason why this was created was the React Native team at Facebook analyzed performance data and noticed that JavaScript engine itself was a significant factor in startup time and download size. All right, so a lot of research was carried on, and we found out that there was a lot of bugs with the JavaScript, not bugs actually, a lot of drawbacks in the regular engine that was used for the old versions of React Native, and loading all of these issues into a bundle was almost unnecessary, because the loading time for the old engine which was being used was not as optimized as when Hermes was introduced. The user's expectations when using another app is, as I said earlier, it has to be fast, it has to be not so large. So that is one of the reasons why this was designed. So Hermes is designed to improve app performance, focusing on React Native app, even with the mass market hunger for more optimal apps in the system with little size and higher, lower startup time. All right, so this is an example of an effect of Hermes with the Android bundle. All right, so I don't know if you guys see my slide. Okay, yeah. This is an after effect of a Hermes after effect of Hermes on an app. All right, so the app had, I don't know if you guys have seen. I hope that's catching. Okay, yeah. So you can see that reactive for the startup time, it was reduced by 1.0 seconds. This was research I carried out actually, and then the APK size was reduced by 9 MB, and then the memory size of the app was reduced by 18, almost 19 MB. Right, the main architecture of Facebook focus with Hermes are adapting a garbage collection for mobile constraints, ditching the JIT, just-in-time compiler, and recompiling the JavaScript code. Now, adapting the garbage collector came with many reasons. Hermes adapting garbage collection is to reduce the overall virtual memory consumption by a particular app. All right. So in older phones or older OS, Android OS, when the app is too large or the app requires a lot of memory, the app will you will notice that the app will be crashing or it will have a very slow startup time. This experiment is not so effective in newer phones, but if you test it with older devices, you notice the serious issues with these kind of problems. All right, so that is one of the things that was introduced in Hermes. And then why the JIT, just-in-time compiler, ditching just-in-time compiler was helpful because just-in-time compiler warm up the application. All right, so and then this. Yeah, the just-in-time compiler aids native code size and memory to be reduced, which is a problem. All right, so the older versions of React Native where we have to rely on just JIT compiler. All right, this had effect on the APK size and the memory, and then ditching and taking this out with Hermes reduce the size of APKs and memory storage drastically. Now, recompiling JavaScript code into bytecode helps a lot because parsing and compilation directly reduce time spent on any task at runtime. All right, so during runtime, a lot of tasks have been carried out, and then with recompiling JavaScript code into bytecode helps in reducing that startup time. And since recompilation phase has relaxed time constraints, bytecode generated is usually smaller and more effective. The Hermes bytecode can be mapped into memory without requiring to read the whole file in advance, which brings a huge improvement with slow flash memories and reduces the chances of app being killed by the OS due to excess memory usage, which was an issue before now. All right, so with those few things about Hermes, a lot of people ask why Hermes is not on iOS or if Hermes is on iOS. But as of date, Hermes does not support iOS, and this is because Apple is being forced to use only the JavaScript core and not the V8 engine. All right, so JavaScript core is optimizing virtual machine that is inbuilt engine for WebKit. WebKit is a browser engine used in Safari browser and also used in other iOS browser. All right, this was built with by Apple using C++, and it runs on macOS, iOS, and Linux. All right, so the reason explaining this point is that the iOS are being forced to use just JavaScript core and not V8 like the Android engines, like the Android mobile. Now, Hermes for Android, as of date, Hermes for Android is what I'm talking about. So, as the topic of my talk is optimizing the Android bundle, I just thought I should talk a little bit about general optimization before I go directly into Android. Well, turning on Hermes for Android is very seamless and easy to do. All right, all you need to do is you go to your Android folder, your projects, you go to your app, then you go to your build or Grandu file, and then you just toggle the boolean to enable Hermes, as you can see. And then after you do this, you clear Grandu, and then you rebuild your app. So, and then when you rebuild your app, you won't see the full effect of Hermes when your app is still in development. So, I'll advise you release your app. And then you will see the drastic improvements, just like this chart showed. All right, so you can only see this when you have released the app bundle, not when it's in development. When development is also reduced, but not as much as this. All right, so That is that. Thank you very much for having me talk to you guys today. My name is Godswill and you can follow me on Twitter, Medium, or Dev2. I'm also a contributor for Reactive Nigeria, and you could check our blog out and tell us if you like what we do. Thank you very much. Actually, open for questions. So if anybody has any questions, good.
I think we don't have any questions. I just checked.
All right, cool. Okay. Right then. So I guess that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for the talk. I think if I didn't get anything, I understood that we should always use flat lists, not scroll views.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. So our next speaker will be Syed Zain Ali, who's a senior React Native developer at AppTech Limited, talking about GraphQL using React hooks and Apollo. Don't know if he's ready. Yes, he is.
Hello.
So go on, Zain.
Yes, sure. Just a second.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Okay. Can you just share me? Share my screen, actually. Okay. So let's just start. Okay. Everyone can hear me properly? Okay. Perfect. So hello everybody and welcome to the React Native community for the Nigeria. And today we'll be talking about some about the state management and the GraphQL. And we will see how can we do our state management into the React actually using React and the GraphQL as well. So let's just start and just have a quick introduction about me. And I'm working as a senior React Native developer right now at Avidec, and I'm currently working, mainly working with the React Native so far right now. And this is like you can follow me on Twitter, GitHub, or and my YouTube channel as well. I will just start my YouTube channel as well, and this is like about me. I'm mostly and and what we are working right now at Tech is right now we mostly working with the most tech actually. We're working with the GraphQL, React, JavaScript, blockchain, and mobile application game development. So this is like we're mostly working with, and we are working with the almost all the latest tech we must work on. So this is like about me and about my company which I'm currently working in. So after this like presentation, definitely I'll be publishing my slides so you can easily go through and get more into it as well. So I will just after my presentation, I will just publish on the Twitter as well. You can find it over here as well. So for the state management using React hooks. So this is the most important, like interesting thing we must is about is the state management. The state management in terms of data, because like if you're working with an application, while like working with the 4 or 5 pages application, that does not matter. We can work easily and easily data is managed easily. But what about we are working with a larger scale application and we have a much more data? So just it's make a headache for us and headache for us to manage data and make it usable and for entire application. So what we should do for that? So we can manage the data by we have different things with us. We have like Redux. You must know about the Redux as well. We can use the states, and we have many more things to come up to manage the data. So that was a very main headache for everyone. So so we can just to make it a quick outline, what we're gonna use for this presentation is we're gonna see this in presentation is different type of the states. We're gonna see how hooks work. We're gonna see React hooks and the GraphQL and Apollo hooks as well. So this is like overview and outline for our presentation. So as you may know, like there are two like of states actually. One is a global and a global states. That's a common. common understanding with everyone. And if I say, like, for example, a global state is something which is being globally proper simple definition which is being added for the entire application, a state within a with a local criteria within the block actually. So, so let's step by step and talk about the global state first. The global state is an application state that has across the components, across the router data, and across our application. So that's what a global state is. And just a simple, quick example I can give you is, like, for example, if I'm working, if I have an application working with it, and let's say, for example, if I log in it and I come to the dashboard or maybe any other screen which I want to come in, so you see, I can handle all my header across my all application, and I just put my name, etc., all those things which I need to mention and which I need to mention the user. So this is what, like, global state which you can share across the application and in the multiple pages as well. And after that, we have a local state as well. And what does a local state do? A local state is manage the component, and it's just managing and the local component, which, for example, a simple quick example can be, we just manage our data into a form. We're doing a simple validation into the form actually. So that's it's just a common example for the local state. You can easily manage your maybe validation or maybe any other things you wanna do with. So that's what an example can be. So here is just one example once again over here, and you see over here is uh, you see over here is just a form example over here. You will see there's a form over here. You can just make a form validation over here as well. And after that, uh, you'll just see we have a different ways of uh, we can have a different ways of stage management. As I said earlier, we have different ways of state management. So let's just look into it and how can we manage our state management. Because, like, when I come into the React Native and when I just started React actually, and I was like and I just started early, and I just moving on forward. So when I make some few designs, some few screens, and after that when I hit an API and comes back to the data, so I was like, how do I manage this data? I do manage by using Redux or by saying and by using Mobex and by using state or what? Like, because I started earlier, like around 3.5 years back with the React actually. So there were no books at that time, and it was just Redux and Mobex and Flux as well. So every time I was just moving on to the Google and searching and all those things, like, what's the best solution for, like, Redux, Mobex, or whatsoever. So in my point of view is, it depends on the situation. Depends on the situation what you are using is, but as the hooks are come on, we're definitely gonna not gonna say that Redux is died or that all the hooks can be replaced with Redux. It's all depend on the usage on the things we are working on. So we will see, like, how can we manage state with the different things, and actually how can we use it. So we have a React component state, and we can easily manage the states into the React component using context API, headers, Mobex, it's again the Mobex state array hooks, and a follow client as well. So we will see first of all about hooks. How hooks we can manage the states using hooks, and why it's hooks I'm talking about. Hooks has been introduced by the React itself. It's been introduced after, like, 2018, and later, like, 16.8 version. And according to the then Evernote, like, he's the owner of the Redux library actually, and he said that the hooks are the more direct explanation to the game. So we will see, like, how hooks can be used and how hooks can be take away the Redux actually, and how can not in every screen or every application we don't have to use Redux actually again and again, and we can just use a simple hooks. So a state management is hard. Yes, it's hard to maintain sometimes. When I said earlier, like, it's sometimes it's a very hectic to manage data. And for example, if we have a lot more APIs to work within, to work, like, if, for example, if we are e-commerce application with us, and if you see the like like over there, so it's just a burden on application level. So yes, we need to work smartly. We need to work smartly with the data as well to show and manage the data easily for the user perspective as well. So when I just started using Linux, so I was like this. Every time I was just and hectic overall because I was starting Redux. I had to integrate Redux. Then I have to if you hit an API using Redux Saga, then I was like, what's the Redux Saga is now with me? So every time, working just to use and state management, simple state management, every time you have to call the Redux, you have to call Redux Saga and multiple things libraries you have to define on, and you just mess it, and you just say like how can how can I learn in an easy way, or how can I quick start actually, because for a new programmer, for a new student, he's coming with a React actually, because it's very difficult to understand Redux actually, because it's hard to understand Redux. Every time you have to describe the action, and those boilerplate I use very big boilerplate, so that's what a problem actually. So we have to overcome with we can use this by hooks actually. So let's just start and say how the Redux can be useful, and how it can be, what the pros and cons can be. So the good concept about the what I like about the Redux is, when I started it just have a magical connect option, magical connect the key. You just connect a component, or a screen actually with the magical word, with the keyword connect. And whenever you just connect with your screen with the connect with the Redux, all the data can be shared across your screen or component, whatever it is. And what's the bad point? Bad thing I like about the Redux is it's a huge boilerplate. Again, I say it, you have to write every time you just need to write an action, you just need to pass it. Okay, I have to write a reducer as well, and whatsoever. If I do have to manually doing something, I have to make action and integrate all those things into an action as well. So it just it's very hard to manage using. Yeah, it's a huge boilerplate. You have to write a code a lot more code. And second thing is what most I have mostly noticed is mostly a developer is working with the form data as well, with the Redux as well. So let's say, for example, if they are going to use if they're going to work on the form validation, if they're working with a sign up form or a login form, maybe any other form, they're mostly working with the Redux. They're working their validation with the Redux as well. Redux and this Redux is mostly, the concept is to share the data across your application, not to make your all your validation and into your Redux actually. So that's what this like what most approach I do not like is, I've seen this mostly people doing on the internet actually. So this is like that's a, bad approach, I must say. So if we talk about, it's again another state management is a context provider. So okay, so in the context provider, what the good point about it is the state actually, and the no problem. So, so let me give you an example actually for probleming actually, and so you might be clear about what the difference between the context provider and the Redux actually. So what's actually the probleming is? For example, if I have a component, a parent component, and I have a child component which is a 10 children actually, because a component then inside another component, a component, it's a long way actually. So if I could pass the data into the Redux, actually, you can just simply pass the prop actually, and the data is being I'm moving actually. But what if? But what if I had to pass my data into the time children? So, that's the problem. You have to pass cross all those components every time, and that's the more headache. And if you have any data breakdown, if you don't pass it anything, you get just simply get an error. So that's the to just to provide an to overcome that, you just see we have a prop dealing thing, and you just directly lift up the screen, and you just simply use the context provider. And whenever what the better do, like the bad thing is like when it's the consume when the component consume the actually the context provider, it's get updated. So I hopes actually the problem solution is definitely the prop delay and then the left up the scale actually, because working with the Redux, as I said earlier, it's going a long way into the prop dealing. Every time you had to make a long use prop dealing into the component every time, and you have to go a long way actually. So it just simply can come up with the solution with the prop dealing and the lift of the state, so you can easily use as a alternative. So we don't need to write much more boilerplate with the context provider, definitely, because like as the Redux we have to write that. And one thing most important thing is we use the states without the class component. So if you have some concept about the class component and the function component, because so hooks can be easily used into the function component without calling a class component, and you just directly use hooks into the class component, which is like more faster and most optimized. Whereas the class component mean it's like you have to every time call your class, and which make your application slower. So that's what to make an optimized thing. You can just simply use the hooks actually, and without using the class component actually. And the context provider, what the problem solution is, that you get your reload actually. It makes your application like whenever your context provider is being used, it makes your application reload wherever you are using consuming your context provider. Just simply use it and keep the state close to you actually. So let's move forward and let's see what are the common hooks we mostly work with, and like just let me give you an example with the four hooks actually. So you will see you can see there are four hooks mentioned in this slide actually, and the use effect, the use reducer, use contact, and the use state. And we will see like how it can be useful and how we can use. And so again, we can directly use these things into the functional component because like we don't want to call a class component into it every time, and we just simply use the function component. And we don't meant to connect the redux as well. So just we're going to use this. We see the first two things is the user state and about the user state is, for example, every time, for example, if into the class component we have to write this dot state, and we call the state every time, and you just share it with the component or passing into the different components as well using callbacks or maybe another way you can do as well. So uh, you have to do this thing and every time into the class component. So what use state replaces is it replaces the this dot state every time this the fed state every time you have to do this. You just simply you can use use state and its set state can be directly told you use for you can share to your components again, and it's auto initialize like initialize. You can initialize your state auto initialize to the state actually. So you'll see into the example as well how the use state can be used. For example, if we need to uh, set and counter actually. For example, we have I just say for example there's a counter account over here and as a set count actually. So what I gonna use is I should say I just initialize it with a zero actually, and what you wanna see is in the example actually. If we have to make a set state, we just simply write a p tag. We just simply write count, which will be a zero for this, and if I use it write the set state account plus one, it will be definitely make it re-render and account one can be over here. So that's for a very basic example for using use state actually, and mostly you just simply click on it and the set count will be doing, and that's all what you can do in a function component actually without being a class component. So that's one very good thing actually for our application as well. So here's another example. You can write it's an example again, like pick up your towel in your dish. And this some you can do here as well. And let's see, I just make a one more complex example for you. If you're going to do is I just make a use to do uh, in a list for something actually for someone. You just pick a towel or like this. I just can return both state actually by using my function actually. So you can make a multiple set state just to give you an example. I just make you a two set state. You can say a use state like for example you can set the counter over here. You can use it. You can make any set state. So this is what like I make an example for you. So we see about the React use state actually. So now we will gonna see about I think for the use effect, like what it is useful and why what can be useful. So the use effect is used to make an update to the ROM actually. Like for example, if we have to do something manipulation into the DOM actually using or trigger something a life cycle. So it's just similar to the component did mount, the component component will mount, unmount. It's just simple. It's just a simple example for that actually. So you can just the user stack take care and make your DOM update actually. Or if you have something to be done into there is something need to be changed into the DOM actually. So it just simply or need to trigger something life cycle. So just simply use effect can be useful. That's a simple example for you. Okay, so now let us see. I just have make one more example for using use effect as well. And you see the if you want to change some title into it and into the document title, we have above at there. So you just simply sorry, you can just simply make a count and you can use it. Whenever the use effect will be working with us, so it will change your title count actually. Uh, and one more example, if I have make about is and handle status with a status change. That's what about the online status. If you're working with the chat API, you're working. So you just see whether a user can status can be online and offline as well. So just working unbound and bound as well. So that's here. I just make you an example for your to subscribe your friend status online, and you unsubscribe basically and unmount as well. So you just see it's working, it's taking care of your life cycle, life cycle as well. Like I think if you're working with a functional component, if you go and see like what the functional component is, like we can just directly use we can just directly use view no life cycle and all those things, we can use the side state as well. That's the most common understanding with the functional component actually. But with the hooks actually you can use all these things actually. This can be overcome, and you can, as we said, we can do simply the set state as well using a hook use state, and we can even make a life cycle trigger as well using a use effect as well. So you see these both things, the use effect and the use state, and I think we should move on to the use context and the use reducer now. So now what's the use context and what the use context and use reducer is about is it's again we just need to set up the provider and the consumer. Actually, you just pass it to the provider with some value, and you can just simply consume it with the component. You simply provide a consumer value, and it's just a simple. And what about the use reducer actually? And the use reducer is similar to the actually to the Redux. If you to the Redux use reducer, you must if you have used that, you can get to know easily. The use reducer simply just to pass a state actually and dispatch an action. You just simply get all the reducer as well to it. So the use reducer it's just a simple works like the same Redux as with us. So this is like the use reducer does. So this is like what about hooks is, and this hooks can be easily done for our state management. Even for we can we can use it for instead of Redux actually, and we understand like how can we can do all those things using Redux as well, because if you have to pass an action or trigger something to the life cycle, you have to pass an action, it will go to the reducer and all those things you have to do. But by using hooks, it can be done easily. So this is what like about the hooks was just a complete overview about the hooks, so everyone should know and go to and just make more practice about the hooks and get more detail. You can get to know about more detail into the React document as well. And I will recommend you to just go and try something on your own as well. So now we will see like how Apollo client how can we use Apollo client with the hooks as well. So hooks is something when you have to you have to trigger something in event. Like for example, you have to make a side state, or again if you have to make a change something into a document, a DOM actually, you just simply use hooks. But what if how can we actually manage the state actually? Now it's again how can we have knowing the Redux a long boilerplate action. So now how can we use how can we use actually a state actually by using our application? So there are two actually. Apollo client is basically, as I previously said, explained Apollo client is about this. So we can do it. It's just a state management library. Just like you can use a GraphQL into it, and you can simply use the hooks, and with the use of the hooks, you can call your GraphQL queries, you can call and you can even manage the state. So what is actually a GraphQL queries, and how actually we're going to use it? So just to make an overview, GraphQL query is basically a query that we make as a statement. For example, if you have a query, we have to write a query. For example, we have a long JSON with us, and if you have to make something shorter and according to the need of the screen, we just simply say, okay, I don't need to make all this data long way data for me. I just simply I just simply want to take this into my application and whatever you write in query, for example, and you just simply take it and take it over. So this is like a GraphQL queries take care of you. Is you don't need to have pass again and again. Just combine all those REST APIs as well, and just simply take data into one query and you just simply make populate it into your application as well. So this is like a GraphQL query can help us, and how it can be used. Maybe using use query. It's in a hook or in Apollo. Apollo as a state management library definitely, and we can use query and the use mutation as well. So how we see how this use query and use mutation can be used, and just simply make a quick example, a two-do example. If you want to make something mutation, just write mutation and just and you can just write something into the key like into a submit button and build something mutate actually, and you can use mutation. You can mutate actually to the function and and just passing into this GraphQL function. And this is like something the GraphQL queries look like. You just simply like, for example, get ratings, the table name, then the string, and whatsoever like you want to take is like, for example, message. If you just want to show something with message into a UI screen, if you have a long variation again coming from the backend, actually, you can make it shorter and just simply use query hook. It's a hook again. We don't. It's again. It's useful. Why we are using this? It's again useful. Like we are not using. We are not making a class component. We're just simply using a function component, and we're using the use query actually. So this is like an overview, and all things we had done so far. We can use hooks, and we can use for our application using just to trigger, and we can use Apollo client for the state management using for the GraphQL as well, and we can use Apollo client, and we can make our functional component and make your application more optimized, because like working with the function class components definitely it's a very expensive thing. You must be working with every time you just have to write a class component, so it's very make your application slow as well. So my recommendation is to work with the Apollo client for the state management, and you can write the queries of your own as well, and just use the hooks actually. So I think that's the end of my presentation. You can follow me on the GitHub. Actually, I'll just make some few contribution to the to the library as well. You can follow me on the Twitter, the GitHub, or Stack Overflow, as many as you can. But there's some few examples into the JavaScript level, and you can see how the math work and how the filters and the reducer and the reduce can work. It's just a simple tutorial example just to have a quick understanding. So thank you so much. Okay, so anyone has few questions, so you can connect with me.
Thank you, Zain. That was a really good talk.
Okay.
Just check and see if there are any questions about it. I don't think there are any, so I'd like to call on all other speakers just so we can say a big thank you to all of you and for giving us your time and going through everything and explaining it really well.
Okay.
Are we all here?
Yeah.
I think we're missing one more person. I think Ayo. Is he around? I think he's probably, we've lost him. So thank you all for coming and joining us for this session of React Native Conference Nigeria. And your talks was very insightful. We learned a lot, all of you. Like honestly, it's been great having you here. And so I think I'll just call on Toby to just say his closing remarks for us. Thank you. Toby, are you there? You're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry. So thank you for today. Thanks to all the
Sure.
speakers and insightful talk. Really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one with more powerful talks, just like this one. So to the next one.